Hi there, this is your favorite YouTube content creator, Atilla Yeşilada, reaching out to you from sunny Istanbul. As you can see, it's fairly bright in Istanbul. Spring is coming. I can feel it in my old bones. And perhaps it's because of the spring that I am slightly more optimistic about Turkey. And God knows, I don't like to do marketing videos, don't want to extol the virtues of Turkey, which are very few in my view. Today's story is Trump tariff wars, or trade wars, or Trump madness, eventually and probably also Trump currency wars. And the question is, how would they affect Turkey? The answer and the conclusion of this video is they won't. We are merely a spectator in this blood sport. And that is the Turkish story for foreign financial investors looking for a safe haven at these troubled times. If we are lucky, we could also get some much needed foreign direct investment because of Trump tariff wars. This is the story. Turkey doesn't have too much trade with the United States. It's something like 7% of our total trade. The Trump administration, the first one, had already levied 25% taxes on our steel exports. And, in retaliation, I think we have imposed taxes on, American food products and alcoholic beverages. Also, assuming that the Trump tariff wars is going to hurt China and Asia most, we don't trade with China that much either. In fact, we have a huge trade deficit with China. So, maybe it will help us too. Finally, Erdogan and Trump are getting along fairly well. I'm sure there will be disagreements along the line, but as it stands, Trump has spoken very positively about Erdogan. The two leaders have not talked on the phone or face to face since Trump's reelection, which is very smart because both are, how shall I say, very outspoken men. And if Trump raises the idea of turning the Gaza Strip into the Riviera of the Middle East, Erdogan's going to blow his top off and he's going to just start ranting about Israel, expansionism, anti-Semitism, Zionism, all that stuff, which could really anger Trump. And nowadays, even Putin doesn't want to be on the wrong side of Trump. So, fine, but how is that in any way beneficial for Turkey? Well, let's start with financial investors. Since Trump's re-election, they have been busting their brains to find out exactly which tariff threats are realistic and which country is likely to be hurt the most. Or if such an animal exists, which country will benefit from Trump tariffs? So the money has been shuffling back and forth among emerging markets. In terms of equities, foreign financial investors have largely remained on the sidelines because there's no way really to calculate. I mean, Trump right now is preoccupied with EU, which somehow suddenly turned America's biggest and most lethal enemy. But eventually he'll turn his gaze, his wrathful gaze, to Asia. I'm not talking about China. I'm talking about other Asian nations which have relatively large trade surpluses with the United States, Japan, South Korea. Taiwan, and Vietnam. All of these countries will have to bear the brunt of Trump's tariff policy. And of course, either they'll have to retaliate, or their exports to the United States will go down, or companies exporting to the United States will have to sacrifice their profit margins to compensate for higher taxes in the United States, all of which are bad for them. The same doesn't apply to Turkey. Under no conceivable condition, any kind of Trump tariffs on any good or country would be relevant for Turkish trade. We could lose a couple of $1 billion here and a couple of $1 billion there, but as it stands, for those who are worried about the trade wars lottery and who the unluckiest guy or gal is in the emerging markets universe, Turkey is a safe haven. And I think that view is becoming more widely accepted in the sense that Turkish Stock Exchange has been rallying over the last month or so. In terms of what we call rates and credit, that's bond investors, etc. They have been very busy in emerging markets simply because emerging market bonds are relatively safe from Trump trade wars. I mean, even if Trump imposes 100% import tax on all Chinese goods, China is going to honor its government obligations. The same is true for Japan or any other EU country. So there has been nice inflows into emerging market bond markets, and Turkey has also benefited from these inflows. But the great story is the stock exchange. The stock exchange is very undervalued. It's usually Turkish stocks trade at a discount to emerging markets averages. Well, simply because we have Erdogan and they don't. But this time the discount is even deeper. Moreover, emerging markets equity index, MSCI, is trading at a deep discount to S&P 500, a discount that's larger than usual. So eventually, even though the profit outlook for Turkish companies is not spectacular this year, I think international funds will, at least temporarily, park their money in Turkish equities. I have referred to this before. I don't do equity research, but I read macro strategy reports. Currently, the consensus is that Turkish stocks would appreciate roughly by 35% this year. Of course, these are TL gains. They don't translate into dollar gains. So what about the exchange rate? I mean, clearly, exchange rates are affected badly from Trump trade wars. Let's look at the Canadian loonie or the Mexican peso. And I'm fairly sure eventually Trump would also consider imposing trade barriers on countries which don't use dollars or don't buy American bonds. Once again, this doesn't apply to us. We have relatively little issuance in the international markets, and the exchange rate is unofficially pegged by the central bank's strong Turkish lira policy. See one of my videos below. Essentially, Turkish central bank is trying to fight inflation, underlining trying because it's not doing a very good job. And one of its most potent weapons is to suppress the appreciation of the dollar against the Turkish lira. This makes imported goods less expensive, or the imported good prices less inflationary. And also, since a lot of Turkish retailers and corporates judge future prices by dollar TL exchange rate, it creates a psychological disinflationary effect. This year, Turkish inflation, CPI, will probably not end the year at less than 30%. And believe me, as I've said, look at my t-shirt, pink, spring is coming, I'm optimistic. So I'm giving Turkish inflation the benefit of doubt. Probably 35% is more realistic if I was in a bad mood. I need to get into a worse mood, so this doesn't sound like, a turkey pitch. But to keep inflation at 30%, or to have any hope of achieving central bank's target inflation rate, which is around 25%, dollar TL must appreciate significantly less than expected inflation. So I estimate that dollar TL would only appreciate by 20% this year. Give and take a couple of percentage points, of course, depending on how dollar index does vis-a-vis euro or Japanese yen. So let's go back to the calculus of an international equity investor. There is an upside of 35% in Turkish equities, but I would lose 20% of that because dollar is appreciating against the Turkish lira. That's an expected gain of 15% in dollar terms, which is not too shabby given all the uncertainties about developing nations which may be hit by Trump tariffs. For the same calculation, Turkish yields are a great carry trade, and we are already benefiting from that. What you might say, wait a second, what about this friendship between Trump and Erdogan you are talking about? I mean, Trump is very unpredictable. He likes Israel. He has strange ideas about Gaza. And Erdogan has been really outspoken to the point of being outright rude about Israel until the recent past. Of course, that is always a risk. But being a connoisseur of Turkish media, I have noticed that since Trump's re-election, Erdogan has been comparatively more polite towards Israel, which simply means he uses fewer four-letter words. But still, let's say he has been very calm in his criticism and factual in his criticism of Israel. The burden of bad-mouthing Israel has been shifted to our foreign minister, Mr. Hakan Fidan, who's a more sensible guy. He doesn't have the same fiery, fire and brimstone rhetoric that Erdogan uses, so whatever he says sounds polite. So the prospect of Erdogan-Trump relationship suddenly breaking up because of Gaza or Israel is very low, okay? Both leaders are very unpredictable. It's not zero, but it's very low. Another potential friction point was Syrian Kurds, America's ally in Syria and in the war against ISIS. Turkey thinks Syrian Kurdish political entity, Syrian Defense Forces, or YPG, PYD, is a terrorist organization. It isn't. It has terrorist elements in it and supporters of PKK, but it's a legitimate political organization, as legitimate as it gets in this region of the world. And Turkey was vehement that Syrian Kurds disarm. And this happened thanks to the United States, apparently. The military leader of Syrian Kurds, Muslim Abdi, was ferried to Damascus on 10th of March to meet the new president al-Shara, and they signed a protocol for the Syrian Kurdish entities to merge into the national government. So all the military forces of Syrian Kurds will become part of the Syrian National Army. And the customs, the airports, other critical facilities such as oil and gas fields will also be turned over to the national government. Not 100% what Turkey wanted, but 80%. So another potential clash point between Erdogan and Trump has disappeared overnight. Some will claim that Erdogan is also a great ally of Iran, and Trump's maximum pressure policy on Iran would raise Erdogan's ire. Nope, it won't. While Turkey and Iran have friendly relationships, cordial relationships, traditionally, historically, they have been regional antagonists. There is only so much room for expansion for either of them. And behind the scenes, they have not really supported each other. In fact, Turkey dealt a huge blow to Iran's war against Israel by helping al-Shara topple Assad. So there is no love lost between the two countries. If United States truly manages to shut off Iranian oil exports or do more damage to Iranian economy, Turkey would politely protest but will not push the issue. And of course, in Ukraine, we have a great advantage. Erdogan can talk to both Trump and Putin. It is conceivable, if there is ever a ceasefire in Ukraine, that the Turkish military would be the only acceptable peace force. Trump doesn't want to send American soldiers. Putin made it very clear that he doesn't want any soldiers from EU countries. Well, that leaves Turkey. And we have, the military, the infantry, with a lot of experience in peacekeeping. So, essentially, political risks or foreseeable events between Turkey and the United States, leading to Trump's wrath and imposition of tariffs, is not a likely scenario. Also, there could be benefits for Turkey. One of them is that if Trump really levies 25% or higher tariffs on EU products, some of the Turkish products may become cheaper for American companies despite larger shipping costs. I don't think that effect is going to be very large, but even a couple of $1 billion makes a difference to Turkey's current account deficit and is an attraction point for foreign investors. Another thing that is relatively more likely is some of the EU companies shifting their production to Turkey and exporting from Turkey to the United States if we remain exempt from tariffs. There is even a bigger upside, which is only indirectly related to Trump's policies. Trump doesn't like NATO and doesn't like European countries, and he likes Putin, at least for the next 24 hours. So, EU countries have recognized that they're facing the threat of being left alone with the Russian expansionist threat. How much of a threat that is, honestly, I don't think it's a big threat, but hey, what do I know? The European leadership is extremely fretful about Russia running over Ukraine and then trying to expand into the Baltic republics or Poland or Hungary, whatever. As a result, they are trying to get together a huge package for more military spending and to beef up both their military equipment and their armies. Well, if you want to do that quickly, then you need Turkey because we have under 500,000 soldiers under arms. I'm sorry, we have 500,000 soldiers under arms. At least 100,000 of them are battle trained in the war against PKK. And in addition to military drones, we can also produce huge quantities of ammunition, artillery, uh, artillery balls, cannonballs. Jesus Christ, very rapidly. So it's quite possible that EU would finally grant Turkey what she has coveted for a long time, which is a green light for a renewed customs union. The current agreement has aged poorly. It has turned against Turkey, and it doesn't cover services or agriculture. In particular, in certain services, Turkey is becoming more competitive vis-a-vis Europeans, like health tourism. Net, a new customs union agreement would increase trade for both sides. No one has conducted studies on this issue for many years simply because it wasn't even on the agenda over the last 10 years. But the latest studies showed that Turkey would slightly gain more than EU. I think this time we're going to get a much bigger trade effect. I can't predict the net gainers, but I can predict one thing. Even the announcement that negotiations for a new customs union treaty have started, Turkey will receive huge inflows of FDI, foreign direct investment. They will come from EU companies. They will also come from Asian companies which want to bypass potential EU sanctions. So, in that respect, Turkey's diplomatic outlook looks more positive than before Trump's re-election. We're already seeing this being reflected to our bond and swap markets and to our euro bonds. I think equities will be next. And if things work out as I've described in this video, the biggest bonus for Turkish economy, for Turkish people, for Turkish workers would be to get some FDI. Because really, Turkish companies don't want to invest or don't have the funds to invest, and we're lagging badly, even behind Europe, in terms of improving our technology. Well, this has been another Atilla Yeşilada rumbling, representing Real Turkey channel. Thank you for watching me, and if you like it, subscribe, do whatever, share it with others, and have a good day. This is Atilla Yeşilada saying goodbye from Istanbul.